Oliver and his brake van Toad enjoy working in the big yard, but one morning Toad noticed that Oliver looked unhappy. He decided to find out why.
Excuse me, Mr. Oliver, but it seems that things are not well with you, if you forgive me for mentioning it.
You're quite right, Toad. All I do these days is push freight cars onto the turntable. I long for a nice run. It's what an engine really needs.
Quite so, Mr. Oliver. May I suggest that you speak to Sir Topham Hatt about your problems?
But Oliver said nothing. He just grew unhappier, and he was rough with the freight cars.
You're no good, Oliver. You're dangerous. We want Percy.
Percy's far too busy to be bothered by the likes of you. And Oliver bumped the freight cars hard. You silly engine, shouted a workman. It'll take a long time to repair this turntable, which will cause confusion and delay. And it did too. With the turntable out of action, the engines had to arrange their trains the long way around. They didn't like that one bit, and they made sure Oliver knew it. That night, Sir Topham Hatt came to see him. Oliver, you have caused confusion. I thought you could control freight cars. Seeing as you can't be trusted in the yard, I'll be sending you to the clay pits on Edward's branch line. Perhaps a few days shunting with the twins will clear your smoke box. Yes, sir. Sorry, sir, said Oliver meekly. Cheer up, old chap, encouraged his driver. It's only for a few days, and then it's back to business as usual. But Oliver still felt miserable. Things just kept getting worse. The next day, he arrived at the clay pits. Straight away, Bill and Ben enjoyed teasing him. "Oh dear, Bill," said Ben. "Look who's here, the Troublemaker himself." "It's always freight cars and turntables with him, isn't it?" Bill added, and they laughed rudely. "That's enough," Oliver snapped. "Either behave yourselves or I'll be telling Edward and Boko about you." "Ooh, a tattletale," the twins gasped. "Won't do you any good," Ben said cheekily. "Edward's banking on the hill." "And we don't know where Boko is," added Bill. The yard manager approached. "All right, that's enough," he said sternly. "Time for you all to get to work." Oliver didn't enjoy working in the clay pits at all. Dust rolled everywhere, and Bill and Ben taunted him every time he passed. The yard manager, however, was impressed. "You've done very good work," he assured him. "We have a special load of clay to take to the end of the main line tonight. Would you like to pull the train?" "Oh, yes, please," said Oliver, eager to get away. But they should have checked with Sir Topham Hatt first. That night, Oliver backed down on the train. "Careful out there," said Bill. "The line can be spooky if you don't know the way." "Ha!" snorted Oliver. "Can't be any worse than working with you two." The twins just laughed as he puffed away. Oliver delivered the clay on time, then hurried back down the line. That's when the trouble began. The fog came down. Oh, they were right. Suddenly everything does look spooky. "There's a signal box," said his driver, "and the signal light is green. Someone must have been expecting us." But they weren't. The points had been set for a previous train. They were going the wrong way. After a long journey, they arrived in an unknown area. "It's best if we wait here until the fog clears," said the driver. "What are those strange sounds?" Oliver wondered. Then, the fog slowly lifted. "Oh no! We're in the scrapyards!" Oliver's driver and fireman went for help. Oliver sat alone for a long time. But then he heard a noise. 2 diesels came up behind him. "Got you this time, Oliver," You'll make very fine scrap indeed. Buffer 'em, Bert. The Diesels took him to the large smelter shed. Bye-bye, Ollie, the Diesels grinned. Oliver looked ahead. The large furnace awaited. No! He cried. Help! Help! The Diesels cackled nastily. No one escapes from us. But just as they came to the furnace, Boko pulled into the shed alongside, looking furious. What do you think you're doing? Putting a little steamer out of his misery, snarled the Diesels. What's it to you? That's one of Sir Topham Hatt's engines. Now leave him alone. And he growled loudly. The two Diesels backed off, quite abashed. Boko buffered up to Oliver and took him to a nice empty siding to calm down. You're okay, he assured him. This is the ironworks. We bring the scrap from the branch line up here. And those two are just the grim messengers of doom, Ari and Bert. Lucky for you, I've been collecting scrap all around the island today. Very lucky, Oliver chuckled. First luck I've had all day. The next day, Sir Topham Hatt came to see him. Well, Oliver, I've heard all about it. Rest assured, those two Diesels won't be working for quite some time. I think it might be best to send you back to the yard, so long as your accident remains an isolated incident. Oh, yes, sir, said Oliver. After the day I had yesterday, doing the same old thing every day might not be so bad after all.